Barclay Goodrow is your overtime hero, and the Rangers win an instant classic of a Game 2 to even the ECF at 1 game apiece. Plus, we discuss why the Rangers must leave Matt Rempe in the lineup.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1075 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning guaranteed bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So what an absolute thriller, just a dogfight, an absolute battle of a game against the Florida Panthers in Game 2. Rangers staring a 2-0 deficit in the face. They go into overtime, back and forth the entire way through, about as evenly played of a hockey game as you'll see, and everything that the Stanley Cup playoffs should be. Again, just an absolute dogfight. Had to fight for every single inch of the ice out there. And of course, we end up with an unlikely hero, although maybe it's really not that unlikely. Barclay Goodrow has played very well for the Rangers in the playoffs, and as we've seen in the past, even before he got to the Rangers, he does kind of have a knack for those Johnny-on-the-spot kind of goals, those big goals in the playoffs, and his game and his style of play just translates very, very well to playoff hockey, and that's been on full display throughout the first 2 rounds and now the first 2 games of the ECF against the Florida Panthers. But the Rangers were up against a lot here. They kept showing this stat on ESPN about how I think it's 19 times in conference final history the home team has lost the first 2 games, and only once have they ever come back to win the series. So, I don't think that means it's impossible for the Rangers to do it if they fall down 2-0. But obviously, this is a huge game. You want to get this series even, and you don't want to head on the road in a 2-game hole, because at that point, again, it's not insurmountable. It can be done, but you are starting to dig a hole for yourself. And on top of that, you're going up against a goalie in Sergei Bobrovsky, who not only is one of the best on the planet, but this stat blew my mind. He had won 12 consecutive playoff overtime wins. That doesn't even seem possible, but apparently it is a fact. And that streak is no more. We got to talk a little bit about a couple of the things that happened in the overtime period, because obviously it's very tense and could go either way. I love the Rangers game in the overtime. I thought they clearly outplayed the Panthers when it mattered the most in the overtime period. But with that said, all it takes is one chance this way or that way, or one lucky bounce or one unlucky bounce, and the game can end just like that. But you had Filipino almost emerging as the overtime hero for what would have been his first goal of the entire season, regular season and playoffs combined. What a story that would have been. Of course, it ends up being Barclay Goodrow. But side note here, I do think this is about as good as Filipino has looked for the Rangers ever since he came back. And I know he's only played a couple of games, but I do think this is his best one thus far. In the overtime period, he put a shot just wide on the first shift of the extra time. He also really had the game-winning goal on his stick, and very likely would have scored had it not been for, let's just say it like it is, the butt of Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Football fans, Jets fans, not to bring up a painful memory, you'll remember the butt fumble from many years ago. This was the butt save. What happened on this play, you've got Kreider zipping into the zone. He takes a shot. Bobrovsky has to move right to make the save. Rebound goes to the other side of the net. Filipino is there to collect it. And of course, Hedl was playing up with Kreider and Mika Zibanejad. He fires a shot, and my arms are starting to go up. I think it's game over. That net is wide open. Good play by Oliver Ekman-Larsson, sprinkled with a little bit of luck as well. Larsson went down to try to block the shot, which I guess he did. Went off of his backside, stood underneath Bobrovsky, who was scrambling to get back in position, and somehow stayed away from the net. So Filipino coming close a couple of times. We had Roslovic setting up Wenberg in the overtime period for a tip-in try. That one wouldn't go either. One of several nice saves, obviously, that Bobrovsky and also Igor Shesterkin made in this contest. Igor made a couple of saves in overtime, too. There was one where I think it might have been Lomberg went in up the right side, and Igor had to square him up and made the save there. So that was big, obviously. Igor Shesterkin was fantastic in this game. 26 saves on 27 shots. That's just the kind of performance you expect from Igor Shesterkin when everything is on the line. But let's go ahead and get to this game winner by Barclay Goodrow. So much happening on this play. And really, Barclay Goodrow made 3 different big plays on this one shift alone. And I'll explain what I mean by that going through the play here. So first of all, he wins the faceoff. You got a faceoff in the Rangers zone, the defensive zone, and every faceoff is big, but when you're in overtime and the faceoff is in your zone, that's one that you have to have. I mean, it's survivable if you lose it, but let's win the faceoff and start getting the puck out of our own zone here, which the Rangers did a couple of times. Panthers, at least twice, dumped it back into the Rangers zone. And, a little bit of a stalemate here, a little bit of a battle, just trying to get the puck out of the Rangers zone, which is very difficult to do against this Panther team. And then Jacob Trouba, for the second time in this shift, from the corner, lifts the puck up into the air and out of the Rangers zone. This time, he takes a really big hit in order to do so. So Trouba obviously can dish out the big hits, and here he absorbs one as well. Took a big hit, once again, to clear the puck into the air. And then you've got Barclay Goodrow in the neutral zone. He reaches up with his stick. Not quite a high stick. They took a look at it, but he's able to knock the puck down to the ice to his own feet. He moves it to Trocheck. So that was the second big play that Goodrow made. He obviously won the faceoff. And then this big play in the neutral zone, and he gets the puck over to Trocheck. Trocheck over the blue line. Will Cooley's there too. He jumped into the rush. Interesting trio on the ice here. Trocheck and Cooley and Goodrow. But regardless, you've got Trocheck centering from along the boards to Barclay Goodrow. Goodrow, a perfect shot into the top shelf, right in the corner there, and he wins it. And just a huge goal. It was awesome seeing the Rangers' reaction on the bench. Matt Rempe, he was actually starting to stand up as this play was developing here. So maybe he kind of felt it that the goal was about to happen. You had Braden Schneider. He was screaming his head off. And I don't know what Trocheck was doing. Trocheck obviously had the primary assist, a beautiful pass to Goodrow, but some kind of dance, hopping up and down as he's making his way over to Barclay Goodrow. That was cool. Something else that I noticed during the celebration that I thought was really neat. Everybody goes to Goodrow, understandably so. He's obviously the overtime winner. Erik Gustafsson went right to Igor Shesterkin, who obviously had a whale of a game for the Rangers. For my money, the best goalie in the universe. And nice to see Gustafsson do that. And Goodrow and Igor had kind of a moment too. You couldn't see Igor's face, but the two of them hugged. And I think Goodrow pretty much just told him, heck of a game. Obviously, they interview Goodrow on the bench after the game is over. He mentioned that Jonathan Quick, Artemi Panarin, Chris Kreider all stood up during the intermission between the third period and the overtime to address the team and say what they needed to say. So again, there will be Ranger fans saying no leadership, no grit, no heart. All those things could not be more untrue, and all of them were disproven in this one game alone. But Barclay Goodrow with that overtime winner, his fourth goal of the playoffs. He had 4 goals, and I believe it was 80 games in the regular season. The guy is just built for playoff hockey, and it's a little bit of an oversimplification, but this man is here to play playoff hockey for the New York Rangers. He's an effective player for them when the postseason rolls around. He was when he played for the Sharks. He certainly was when he played for the Tampa Bay Lightning. The guy just goes to a different level, and like I said, his game, very physical, grinding style, translates very, very well to the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's got the 4 goals, and he could have more than that. There have been a couple of times where he's been close to scoring a dirty goal in the playoffs. Obviously, certain situations where he wasn't able to do so. There was a game against the Canes where he was right on the doorstep and kind of got by everybody and got hooked down to the ice, and the refs just didn't feel like calling a penalty. So he had a chance to score on that one as well. But I mean, what else can you say? This game was complete chaos. Again, just an absolute battle from start to finish. And for my money, not just for the Rangers, not just for the Panthers, but you look at the entire playoff field and all the different rounds and all the different series that we've seen so far, this game's got to be up there as far as being one of the absolute best, one of the most just, tightly contested, absolute battles of a hockey game that you will ever see. And, I've mentioned this in the past, I'll take a 6-5 Ranger win every now and then. That can be fun, offensive fireworks and, the best players doing their thing. And, you get chaos that way. But, man, winning a game like this, 2-1 against such a tough opponent, absolutely needing to get this win and getting it done in the overtime doesn't get a whole lot better than that. Series now once again tied at 1 game apiece. And the Rangers now 3-0 in overtime in this year's playoffs. And again, through 2 games here, this is about what we expected. It goes back and forth, and it's 2 excellent elite teams. They would not have made it this far if that was not the case. And, I think, it'd be more fun in some ways if the Rangers could ever get a blowout win in these playoffs. But hey, man, this is what you sign up for as a hockey fan. You have to go through the ups and downs and the roller coasters of Stanley Cup playoff hockey. And obviously, the Rangers were able to get the result, and that is awesome to see. And as for Goodrow, I mean, look, he's been great. We've said that. But one more point that I'll make about Barclay Goodrow here. In the playoffs, you need a couple of guys to step up big and give you more than you're expecting. You need that. I really believe that. Any team that's going to win the Stanley Cup, one year or another, there's got to be at least one or two guys that give you more than you thought you were going to get for them. And Barclay Goodrow is certainly one of those players. He's not the only one, but he's certainly one of those guys thus far in this year's tournament. That's just awesome to see Barclay Goodrow coming up clutch as he's done numerous times throughout his career. And let's also give some props to Vincent Trocheck while we're at it. He obviously had a huge, I mean, he's been fantastic the entire playoff run. The numbers will back it up. The eye test will back it up. But I think one of the biggest things here is that Vincent Trocheck has now had a huge hand in all three of the Rangers' overtime winners in the playoffs. Think about it. Game 2 against the Canes, gets a little bit of a dirty goal on the power play. You know, Mika, I think it was Mika, just throws it from the corner toward the net, tried to get, I think Freddie Anderson was in net, tried to get him a little bit flat-footed, and initial save was made. Trocheck finds it, buries it from the doorstep. He also makes a great pass, gets the puck out of the corner in Game 3 against the Canes to set up for Panarin for the between-the-legs winner. Beautiful goal there. And then, of course, here, perfect pass to Barclay Goodrow, setting up Goodrow to get the job done. So 3 overtime winners, 1 goal, and 2 primary assists for Vincent Trocheck. Not too shabby. But we're going to keep everything going in just a second. I want to talk a little bit about how I think it's a positive thing that the Rangers were able to win a game despite losing the special teams battle. Also going to get to some lineup decisions, both for this game and going forward. Going to talk about why Matt Rempe needs to stay in the lineup and talk about, what the future might hold for Kaapo Kakko. And we are going to do all that fun stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. It is winner take all time in the NBA and in the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and much, much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers, celebrating, obviously, the big Game 2 win and Barclay Goodrow being your somewhat but not totally unlikely hero. I think that's what we'll go with. Somewhat but not totally unlikely hero in Barclay Goodrow, because, when you break it down, he's not the first name that comes to mind, but when you see Barclay Goodrow come through in a moment like this with a goal like he scored last night, it's not the most surprising thing you've ever seen, because we've seen him do things like this in the past. But for the everydayers, first of all, thank you, as always, for supporting Locked On New York Rangers during this playoff run here and throughout the entire season. We will probably have a Sunday night episode to recap Game 3. The puck drops for Game 3 on Sunday at 3 p.m. So odds are we'll record a little bit later that night. But for right now, let's go ahead and focus on another, what I thought was an interesting storyline coming out of this game. The Rangers lose on special teams, but they win the game anyway. And a lot of times, the team that wins the special teams battle is going to be the team that ends up winning the game. It really is just that simple. And we saw some, a lot of examples really of that the first 2 rounds for the Rangers, both against the Caps, also against the Canes. And all I hear about from people that, don't like the Rangers, or even some Ranger fans that seem to doubt this team over and over and over again. And again, this series could still go any way. It's going to be an absolute dogfight, that is for sure. But all I hear about is how the Rangers rely on basically 2 things to save them, and that would be Igor Shesterkin and their special teams. And somebody needs to explain to me, and I feel like I've made this point in the past, but somebody is going to have to explain to me why the Rangers are not allowed to benefit from having a phenomenal goalie, most important position on the ice, by the way, and why they're not allowed to benefit from having elite special teams units. Those things are very important. Any level of hockey, no matter what the situation might be, regular season, playoffs, doesn't matter. Those things, I guess we could say 3 things, because, goalie, power play, penalty kill, very, very important. And yeah, both are a major reason why the Rangers have made it as far as they did. Certainly last night, Igor Shesterkin was in action, and he was doing his thing and making a ton of great saves. A classic goaltender duel, to be sure. But Igor Shesterkin, you expect that from him. And again, I think the Rangers, it's okay. They're allowed to benefit from having an outstanding goalie. The other thing, though, where the Rangers actually lost the battle was the special teams. And again, you hear all these things, they're power play merchants. If you take away their special teams, the Rangers wouldn't be that good. These are the same people in a lot of cases, by the way, that praise the Carolina Hurricanes for their excellence on special teams. And we saw how that series went. We saw how the special teams battle in that series went. But with all that said, I will admit, it is nice to see a game that the Rangers could go out there and grind and not win the special teams battle and basically silence the doubters that say that, oh, it's only because of the goalie and the special teams, and win the game anyway. You have all this talk about how the Panthers are this elite 5v5 team, and they are. You know what? They're a fantastic team too. And as I mentioned earlier, no team that is not one of the truly elite teams in this league would make it this far, or at the very least, not playing elite hockey would make it as far as the conference final. You hear about how there's no way the Rangers can hang with the Panthers 5v5. The Panthers are too physical. They have too much depth. They're this, they're that. Well, the Rangers have now hung with the Panthers in both of these first two games. I maintain, and there's people that are going to argue with me on this, game one was not the car crash that people made it into. I would give the Panthers a little bit of an edge for sure. The Rangers were in that game the whole way through it, though. And defensively, I mean, look what the Rangers have done to the Panthers. The Panthers have all these, weapons and all this depth and a lot of different guys that can hurt you, a lot of different guys that can get on the score sheet, in addition to being an elite defensive team. But the Rangers now through two games and really 7 periods, because we were getting toward the end of that overtime period. In 7 periods, the Rangers have now allowed just 2 traditional goals scored by the Panthers. There was an own goal in game 1. There was also an empty netter in game 1. And only one of those 2, quote unquote, traditional goals for the Panthers occurred at even strength. The other one happened on the power play in this game. It obviously tied the game at 1-1. So the Rangers, despite not benefiting from something that they usually benefit from, special teams, win the game anyway. They find a way to dig deep and grind and battle. And I've said all along throughout the entire season, really, one of the best things about this Ranger team, one of the things that makes them an elite team, one of the things that truly makes them a bona fide Stanley Cup contender is their ability to win games in a lot of different ways. And they can win high-scoring games. We mentioned that earlier. They can win grinded out low-scoring games like this, goalie duels like this. And apparently they can now win even when the Panthers have the edge in special teams. And for the record, Panthers went 1 for 2 on the power play. The Rangers went 0 for 4. The Ranger power play has obviously been sputtering a little bit lately. And I think the main reason for that, more than anything else, is they're going up against some elite penalty kill units. The Canes eventually got their PK together in the last round. And now in this round, the Panthers have a very good penalty killing team as well. It's tough, and I would eventually like to see the Ranger power play get it going. Again, very nice to know that they can get the job done even when that's not the case. But you watch the Rangers on the power play, you try dumping the puck into the zone and the Panthers get to it before the Rangers do and they're able to clear it out. You try to carry the puck over the blue line. The Panthers just seem to have a way, even when they're shorthanded, of kind of forcing you to the boards and forcing you to the outside, the perimeter. We saw that a bunch of times. They do all the little things right. Their sticks are always in the right position. They keep players on their backhand when, maybe they're looking to shoot and they just can't quite get the puck to their forehand. It's a tough team and it's a tall order. I do think, though, we're due for a Ranger power play goal in the next one. Put me down for Chris Kreider scoring a power play goal, maybe on a tip-in or maybe, burying a loose puck there in the crease. Give me a Chris Kreider power play goal in the next game for the Rangers because, yes, they're up against a great penalty-killing unit, great defensive team in general, obviously a phenomenal goalie, but I do think the Rangers are due for a power play goal, and I think they'll find a way to get one in the next game. And I got to say also that this had to have been a rough night for the whole Rangers are soft crowd, because think about everything that happened this game. I mean, I just mentioned the game in general and how much of a grind this was and how much they had to battle. So the Rangers got into basically, I don't want to say a brawl because that implies that everybody dropped the gloves and were punching each other, but basically a 5-on-5 wrestling match after the goal that was scored by Trocheck. And by the way, that goal was set up by a ferocious yet clean hit from Alexis Lafreniere. You had Trocheck kind of spinning and throwing the puck toward the center of the ice, and the Panthers are able to get it. I think it was Verhaeghe. Lafreniere steamrolls him, and the puck ends up going to Adam Fox. He picks it up. He passes to Trocheck in deep. Trocheck puts it in from the doorstep, and then Lafreniere gets attacked by Verhaeghe after the play. It's either like a sucker punch or a little bit of a cross check to the face. I'm not sure, but I mean, ESPN with their camera work, you never know what's happening. But that's pretty much how it happened. And there was a response from the Rangers right then and there. I mean, they didn't have any fighters on the ice at this time. It's like, Trocheck is out there who, he'll get under your skin, but not the biggest guy. Adam Fox is out there. I believe Lindgren was in the middle of some things, and they're all wrestling the Panthers, this big rough and tumble team, and they're not backing down from them an inch. So I don't want to hear anything about the Rangers being soft. Rangers, by the way, also out-hit the Panthers in this game 51-40. Now, I know some people are going to look at Matt Rempe and say he made the difference, and I like Rempe, and he did a nice job, and he had 9 hits in this game, so that was awesome to see. But overall, he played well. establish a physical tone for the Rangers. But even taking away Rempe's 9 hits, which we shouldn't really have to do, but even if we do that, the Rangers obviously still had a slight edge when it comes to hits. They would have still be in them 42-40, going up against toe-to-toe with one of the most physical teams in the league and throwing their own game right back in their face. And they had to grind their way to this win, showing a lot of heart, a lot of resilience to do exactly that. So we're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to talk a little bit about why Matt Rempe needs to stay in the lineup, what might be next for Kaapo Kakko, the injury to Jimmy Vesey, and just the overall lineup decisions for the next game. And we're going to do all that fun stuff in just a second. Okay, so Matt Rempe back into the lineup for game 2. I think a lot of us were kind of looking for that to happen, expecting that to happen, and ultimately it does indeed happen. The big question really was who was going to come out of the lineup. I floated Jimmy Vesey as a possibility in the last episode. They did not do that, most likely. I mean, more than just this, but one of the big reasons being the fact that Jimmy Vesey is a very good penalty killer, and he can help you in that area. I mean, people were throwing out Jack Roslovic. Maybe even Will Cooley could have been an option to come out of the lineup. Maybe Wenberg, but I think they like his defense and his penalty killing ability, so probably not him either. They had some options, and they ultimately go with Kaapo Kakko. Now, like I said, we'll get to Kakko in a minute. As for Rempe, he had to be in there. You know, he is a polarizing Ranger for sure, but you can't take away the fact that he goes out there and plays physical. This kind of series is tailor-made for somebody like Matt Rempe because there's going to be a lot of hitting, a lot of physicality, a lot of nastiness. If you're going to use Matt Rempe, this is the series to do it. And of course, they're still at home, so they control the last change, and they can kind of pick and choose when they want Matt Rempe on the ice. Now, of course, Vesey got hurt in this game. We're going to talk about more about that in just a second. So that kind of upped Matt Rempe's ice time by default. You know, we saw him out there in the third period. Fairly late in the third period, we saw him on the ice in overtime. Matt Rempe had some great quotes after the game, something about Jiminy Cricket, let's go, or something like that. I have to look up the quote again. But, you know, there are people that, you know, will criticize the decision to play Rempe, or they'll say things like, oh, man, it shouldn't take a fourth liner who plays, you know, 5 minutes a night to electrify the crowd or to get his teammates up. Yeah, I get that to an extent. But you know what? There's no way that plays hockey that, you know, sees a giant like Matt Rempe out there knock somebody in the boards, knock them to the ice, and shake the boards and everything, and hear the crowd get going a little bit. There's no way that doesn't get at least a little bit of a jolt out of that. So I think for that reason, that argument doesn't really hold water. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the Rangers are up for this game. The way they played it would certainly indicate that they were, but Matt Rempe's out there giving you just that little bit of extra energy, that little bit of an edge that can make a difference, obviously, in a huge playoff game that we saw last night. The other thing about Rempe, too, that I have to say, and we'll see what happens with Jimmy Vesey, but, you know, throughout this entire playoff run, there's been a lot of debate, right? We're doing it right now. We're debating, you know, usage of Matt Rempe and should he be in the lineup for the next one? I think he should, because of something that kind of occurred to me during this game. I wrote it into my notes, and that is, when have we really seen Matt Rempe like make a truly costly mistake or look like he's completely lost out there? Now, he is learning a little bit, and he's obviously inexperienced and, you know, a 21-year-old 6th-round rookie. So he's got some things to learn. He is a little bit green, you know, that is for sure. But I don't know, man. Has Matt Rempe committed some unspeakably bad turnover at one time or another? Do I just not remember this? Is there a time where he's been on the ice and been just like hopelessly out of position and it resulted in a goal for the opposition or even a good scoring chance for the opposition? I don't remember any of these things happening. So, you know, we're all worried, and understandably so, about, you know, if you're on the road, you can't play Rempe because they can pick and choose their matchups and take advantage of him. Are teams really taking advantage of Matt Rempe and his inexperience? I'm not seeing anything that would suggest that. I've seen, and I saw in this game too, some good hockey plays by Matt Rempe. You know, there was one time where he kind of used a back check to protect the puck and then pass in front of the net. The pass didn't connect, but it was still good play by Matt Rempe in that situation. There was another sequence where he won a face-off, and then there was an icing against the Rangers. The next shift, he blocks a shot and then delivers a hit, like all at once. Like overall, I don't think he's somebody that's really been that much of a liability out there. He's more than just a one-trick pony and more than somebody that can throw his weight around. Now, we have to talk about the lineup for the next game. And a lot of what the Rangers might do is probably going to hinder on the health of Jimmy Vesey, because we don't know what his status is going to be. I checked it right before I hit record here. Didn't see anything definitive as far as, like, you know, him being back in the lineup, or they're not sure, or he's not going to play. If they knew for sure that Vesey wasn't going to play, they probably wouldn't tell us anyway, but that's fine. Bottom line, Jimmy Vesey got hurt in this game. Big hit by Lumberg and a little bit of a questionable hit. It's one of those that could kind of go either way. I've definitely seen worse. It did look to me like it was interference at the least, because I don't think Vesey really had the puck here. The puck went by him. I don't remember Vesey, playing the puck on this play. He did get him up high. Again, I can't go crazy about it because it is playoff hockey. There's so much physicality. There's going to be so much hitting. And I do like the fact that the refs let these guys play. I thought the refs had a good game in this one. We bashed them when they struggle. The refs overall, I thought, called this one very fairly and right down the middle. And, they didn't call a penalty on this hit that Vesey absorbed there. But obviously, Vesey leaves the lineup. What does that mean? Well, it could mean if Vesey's not available for the next game, that Matt Rempe is going to go back in the lineup. And honestly, even if Vesey does play in the next one, I want Matt Rempe still in that lineup. He does establish a physical tone for this team, and I think he gets the boys going a little bit, and I don't think he's a liability in any way. But if Jimmy Vesey plays, then he'll be right back out there in his usual role. He'll be on the fourth line. He'll be killing penalties, like as he usually does. If Vesey can't go, then I think what you do is you put Kaapo Kakko back into the lineup. And Kakko, he second time now in an Eastern Conference final from two different coaches where he has been a healthy scratch. We saw it from Gerard Gallant in Game 6 against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we now see it here in Game 2 against the Florida Panthers. And, I don't think Kakko has been dreadful. Obviously, he's not doing anything offensively. I believe he has 1 goal and 1 assist throughout the playoffs. And that's another thing, too. That third line, it's mostly been Wenberg and Cooley and Kakko, and they've played very well defensively, take nothing away. They've been on the ice for very few goals against, but they're also not doing anything offensively. I looked at the stats for those 3 players in the playoffs. Between Cooley, Wenberg, and Kakko going into last night's game, and keep in mind, that's your third line on most nights. They have combined for 4 points in 11 playoff games, now 12 playoff games. And that's just not enough from your third line. But the bottom line with Kaapo Kakko, again, if Jimmy Vesey doesn't play, I think you play him back out there. If Vesey does play, I think you leave Kaapo Kakko as the healthy scratch. The Rangers obviously won this game in dramatic fashion. Jack Roslovic at times looked good in this game. I don't think they're going to take Wenberg out of the lineup. Barclay Goodrow has been great. I mean, you wouldn't dream about it. There were people, and even I floated out the idea probably at one time or another of maybe Barclay Goodrow sitting for a game as a healthy scratch in the regular season. You can forget about that now. Barclay Goodrow is one of the go-to guys for the New York Rangers and somebody you can put on the ice in just about any situation. But yeah, if it's up to me and everybody's healthy and the Rangers are ready to rock, I don't think you can touch the lineup in Game 3. I'm leaving Matt Rempe out there. And I know there's going to be some people that have some things to say about that. And I understand your concern. I certainly appreciate that viewpoint. But again, I haven't seen Matt Rempe really do anything where you're like just petrified every time that he's on the ice. And on top of that, we just saw him play late in the third period. We saw him play in the overtime period. If there is a situation where, once again, the Rangers are up by a goal late in the third period in Game 3, or the game goes into overtime, you can now, once again, just not put Rempe on the ice. And I think the Rangers can get by with 11 forwards. We've seen them do it in the past several times in this playoff run here, where Rempe doesn't see the ice a whole lot at a certain point. And if Vesey's back out there, you've still got 11 forwards, even if you take Rempe out of the equation, which I don't think you have to do. But if you want to do that, I completely understand it. But if you want to take Rempe out of the equation late in the third period and the overtime, and Jimmy Vesey plays, you're still going to have 11 forwards that you feel really good about and you feel can be on the ice in just about any situation. And that being the case, I don't think there's any reason to be petrified of putting Matt Rempe into the lineup in the next game. We'll see how the Rangers look to play it. One other bit of news here. So the Hartford Wolfpack season, of course, concluded. With that being the case, Rangers called up a lot of players to their NHL roster. There is no salary cap in the playoffs. So here you go. Let's go through the roll call here. Belzile, Berard, Bleed, Harper, Garand, Jake Lecision, Mackey, Mancini, Othman, Pitlick, Robertson, Scanlon, Sikora. So it's a much more crowded group now. I don't know how they're going to work with that. Maybe those guys will be on the ice separately from, the main team. I don't expect to see any of these guys in the lineup, but there's no reason for them not to be there and be ready to go if they're needed at one time or another. Of all these players, I think the only ones we saw play for the Rangers this season, Pitlick, obviously, at the start of the year. Brennan Othman was up for 3 games. And I think that might be it. No, Mackey, I think, played in the 1 game, right? And I think Anton Bleed might have gotten into a game at one time or another. But the bottom line, I don't think they're seriously considering putting any of these guys into the lineup. But it's nice that they're there. They're in the mix. And if something happens, I guess, one of them can be available in case of an emergency. But as far as, where this series stands, let me just say to everybody, hang in there. We knew it was going to be tough. We knew it was going to be a roller coaster. There's a lot of ups and downs yet to come the rest of the way here. I said Rangers in 7. I'm sticking with that. I'm sure it'll be a nail biter, giving us all a heart attack, but I have no reason to believe that the Rangers won't eventually persevere in this series. It may not happen. I can't say for sure because, again, it's two excellent elite teams going back and forth. But hang in there, hang tough, stay faithful to this team, and just have fun, man. It's the Eastern Conference Final, and it is stressful, and you are nervous watching these games, obviously. But, man, this is playoff hockey, and this is an absolute blast watching the Rangers chase their first Stanley Cup in 30 years. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.